Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mindful Mental Jacket. I am Joe List, and I am happy that you're here listening to the podcast. I hope that it's helping. I hope that you're enjoying it. And here we are, huh? I just finished meditating. I'm pretty cooled out, everybody. For those wondering, I most enjoy the Waking Up app by Sam Harris. I talk about it a lot. I talk about him a lot on the podcast. And I use the Calm app as well with Tamara Levitt, which is nice. But I've found I still use it. I don't want to say that I don't use it, but I do find the Sam Harris Waking Up app to be even more helpful and deeper in some ways if you want to get deeper into the idea of consciousness and non-duality. And the Waking Up app also has a ton of great conversations and lessons and all kinds of great stuff. So I recommend it. And he also makes it available for free if you are strapped for cash, which many of us are. I think you can just email and there's no explanation needed. So I recommend Waking Up by Sam Harris. He's not paying me to tell you this. He doesn't need me to. I think he's doing very well. This is just me wanting to help you meditate and, try to experience some non-duality. Hey, something we all struggle with, I guess. Good to be here. Good to have you. I'm recording this Wednesday morning. It's early. I just woke up and meditated, and now I'm doing this. And how are you doing? I think a lot of people are struggling, just to let you know. My therapist's overbooked. Talked to him yesterday. That was nice and helpful. He said all his therapist friends are overbooked, and everyone seems to be pretty much losing their mind. I think I talk about this in the episode a little bit. It's strange, before pandemic, you'd struggle and you'd call some friends and someone would be helpful and be like, don't worry about it, bro. I'm over here cool, sitting in the grass or whatever. I'm not a great improviser, but now it feels like everyone you talk to is bummed out, struggling, having a hard time. So it's a little strange. In some ways, it's comforting, I guess, that we're all in it together. In some ways, it's a bummer. But I think, I don't know, things will get better. They have to, right? I hope. I have hope. I do have hope. And I'm spreading that hope into your cockles of your stomach. I have no idea what a cockle is. I know what a cock is. Anyways, let's keep it together here, folks. So I hope you're doing well as possible. And if you're struggling, you're not alone. And I think this conversation may help you. Today, my guest is the incredibly funny, lovable, sweet, jovial, I would say, Ed Larson. Ed is a comedian who used to live directly above me. We talk about it. My wife and I are forever grateful to him. I was walking around in Astoria. My wife and I, at the time, we weren't married, but we were engaged. We had 2 separate apartments. We each had 3 roommates. We lived 2 blocks from each other. And I was walking around and bumped into Ed Larson, who is a comedian that I love. And I said, what are you doing in this neighborhood? And he said, I just moved here, and there's one other unit that's not finished yet, but there's no one living in it. And I said, you think I can have it? He called his landlord and just said, you got to have this guy. And I went to Sarah's work and said, we just got an apartment. So I'm grateful to Ed forever because I love my apartment. And he moved to LA a couple years ago. We used to hear him fuck, and now we hear someone else fuck. So we miss Ed. But Ed was in an amazing comedy sketch group called Murder Fist. We talk about it a bit. You should go check him out on YouTube. It's wild and fun and hilarious. And he's someone who I always liked and wanted his respect. You might know him from I think it's the Last House on the Left podcast network. He's got a couple of his own podcasts, and he writes for all the roasts. He's a comedian, and he has his own podcast that I discovered on this podcast, this conversation you're about to listen to, with Amber Nelson, who's one of the funniest people I've ever met, who I should get on the show. I think it's called The Bright Side Podcast, where they talk about the bright side of things. So I'm going to check that out. I haven't yet. You should check it out too. We talk about it a little bit on the podcast. And it's an interesting episode. The first 20 or so minutes, we're kind of getting to know Ed. And there's some interesting stuff in there, I think, that you'll enjoy, especially if you're a big fan of Ed's. But even if you're not, you'll learn some stuff about his upbringing. And it's really interesting. And then we really get into disposition and happiness and sort of leaning into sadness when we're feeling it. And there's some really great stuff in there. I enjoyed the hell out of this conversation. I do have to give a trigger warning. The last 6 or 7 minutes, we do talk politics. And Ed is quite critical of the current administration. So if that's something that is going to trigger you, because I know a lot of folks who are fans of the administration are quite snowflakey themselves, even though they like to throw that term around at other people. But I do earnestly not want to upset anybody. So maybe even if whatever your politics are, if you're tired of hearing politics and don't want to hear it, that's in the last 6 or 5 minutes. So you can duck out early if you're not going to enjoy that. Ed is here also promoting a documentary that he made called How America Killed My Mother. That's how we get into the politics. So please go check that out. I believe it's available on Vimeo. You can rent it for like $4 or buy it for $6, I believe. And he'll tell you all about that later in the episode. So there's your trigger warning. I think it's a great conversation. There's some laughs in there. We had some good laughs, kicking around some old times. There's a couple jokes in there. And there's some good stuff. I think you'll take away some good wisdom. I'm happy with this conversation. So please go check out Murder Fist. Check out How America Killed My Mother. And be kind to yourself. That's what I'm working on. Self-sympathy. We talk about that a little bit in the episode. And my therapist told me to stop hating myself so much. So I'm working on that. And I also want to say thank you for the new reviews on iTunes and the kind emails and Instagram messages. Oh, there's birds chirping outside. Can you hear those? They all mean a lot to me. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And also, I want to let you know that my album, I Hate Myself, ironically, is available for pre-order right now. You can go pre-order it, and that really helps the algorithm and gets it to be number one when it comes out. So please go pre-order Joe List, I Hate Myself, wherever you get your albums. That would be great. And the album is different than the special, which of course is available on YouTube for free. There's some differences, so you might want to check out the album. And I always prefer albums over specials, honestly. So please go do that. And with that, we'll get it cooking. Here's a little quote from my favorite guy, the guy that started it all for me, Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, "Many people think of excitement as happiness. They are thinking of something or expecting something that they consider to be happiness. When you are excited, you are not peaceful. True happiness is based on peace." There you go, folks. I hope you're happy, and I hope you are excited about this conversation with my friend, Ed Larson. All right, we're in. This is it. This is recording. I'm here with Ed Larson, who is in a closet.
Yes, I am. I'm never leaving, Joe.
No, where are you? You're in Los Angeles, yes?
I'm in Los Angeles, North Hollywood. I love it out here. It's been nice. We used to be neighbors. Are you in the apartment?
I'm in the apartment. This is essentially your old apartment, same building. And I say it a lot. I feel like you're not that receptive to it, but you're like a god in this house. We're so grateful. We love the apartment. I tell the story all the time. And I just bumped into you walking around here in Astoria. And you were like, there's another apartment. And I was like, I'll take it.
It was a blessing, man. It was the first time I've had neighbors I liked in all of my years I lived in New York.
Well, it's crucial. Neighbors are big in New York. So I hope no one hates us. There's a Wi-Fi that pops up when you go to sign into a Wi-Fi. Someone has the Wi-Fi, I hate my fucking neighbors.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And we're hoping it's not someone in this building. It's someone in the next building over. That's our hope, or at least we're not the neighbors. I hope.
Well, I know it's not your direct neighbors because I'm still in touch with them. The Stantons.
Oh, okay. And they don't hate us?
They love you. Joe, the other Joe is a big fan of you.
Whew, that makes me feel good.
You guys are double Joe. He's definitely he's intimidated by your star power.
Oh,
yeah, but no, it's probably the people who took my goddamn apartment, because the other one is that nice little Greek lady, and then so it has to be the people who took my apartment that hate you.
It's either it could be them. I mean, we're directly underneath them. But did you ever hear Sarah and I sexually, specifically?
Never once.
Great. All right.
I don't think it travels up like that. I think if anything, you had a chance of hearing us.
All right.
And hopefully, how was that? Did you ever hear us sexually?
We never heard much, but you can only hear stuff if like furniture's moving. There's no like TV. There's no sex. If someone like has like a rolly chair, like an office chair, and rolls around, you can hear that. Or if you're sliding around like a bureau or something. But that's good to know, because I'm always afraid, and this is a mental health podcast, and I'm afraid everybody hates me 100% of the time, all the time. Do you have that at all, or are you more of a I don't give a fuck guy?
I'm an I don't give a fuck guy. I always have been. And I noticed that about you, and it always drove me crazy because you're like the nicest dude I ever met, and there's zero reason to hate you, or even dislike you. I mean, you're just kind and gentle, and you're always smiling, and your jokes are hilarious. There's no reason to hate you, Joe. What's wrong with you? Why do you do that? I mean, I'm sure you're in therapy or something.
I'm in therapy. I'm in AA. I'm in meditation. I'm in everything you can be in. I'm in, my wife. I'm in it all. But, well, I was always intimidated by you guys because you guys were in like, you had a sketch thing, and you guys were kind of your own thing. You were over here. You guys came from Florida, and I wanted you guys to like me and respect me. And I was like, they don't like me. I'm this asshole who's like friends with these guys. I don't know what's what, but I always was a huge fan of yours and Murder Fist. And I was like, I always had that thing of everybody in New York hates me. I'm like a Boston guy. I moved here and everyone hates me.
No. No one's from New York. It's like Mike Racine's from New York, and that's about it. Like everyone else is a transplant. I got a problem with Boston. I don't like the sports teams, but that's no reason to hate anybody. But Florida, it was different for us at Murder Fist because we were like a traveling pack. There was, at any point there was 10 to 12, 13 of us, I could see how we would be intimidating. But at the same time, we hated all other sketch groups, for the most part. We did not run in the sketch world. We ran in the stand-up world because we dug the conversation more.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. That makes me feel good. I was a huge fan. I mean, you guys did my birthday one year. I had a Murder Fist birthday party, and I loved it.
Dude, man, anytime I'm looking for a reason to bring the band back together, I would love to fucking do your birthday party again. And you did, I remember when you did the first, was it the Giannis Pappas roast that we threw?
Oh, that's right.
And I just remember you were so happy. The entire roast, I had never seen it. I was just like, this is a genuinely great human being. No matter what anyone said, you kept turning around to me and be like, this is great. I'm having a great time.
that was me when I was drinking. When I was drinking and it was good, I would always say, this is amazing. This is great. And then I would switch and be like, everybody hates me. I suck. But that Giannis roast was to me like legendary. First of all, that was a great time in comedy. I mean, I was a drunk fuck up failure at the time, but it was like,
you could tell.
There was no, I don't think anyone videotaped that. There's no real recording of that. And it was before roast battle kind of became huge. It was like no one was really roasting at that point. That was like,
yeah,
it was pretty rare to have a roast, and we were all good friends, and there was no video camera. Nobody was like, this will be on a Patreon. This will be on YouTube. It was like a genuine, let's go into a dark room and roast each other.
It was a free show we all did for fun and wrote original material for back when we all did it for the love of the game.
Exactly. And I also, at that roast, got the biggest laugh I've ever gotten any situation ever. And I remember the joke. I had to bail on my set because it killed so hard that I had to end. And the joke was, Giannis Pampas has been called a comedic genius. He wears a dress and says the N-word. Evidently, my mother is a comedic genius. And it murdered. I mean, it murdered so hard. And for the record, my mother has never worn a dress or said the N-word. Like, I just wanted to say that. I don't want to get canceled, but the joke it killed the hardest I've ever had anything kill. So I had to be like, good night, folks. But it was an amazing roast. And we did one for Nate, too. There was a Nate Bargatzi roast that was also great.
Yes, I wasn't there for that one. The ones I threw were the Sean Patton roast the year before. And then we did Giannis. And then we started doing the roundtable people. We did Kevin, Marcus, and Henry. And then that was it. After that, feelings started getting hurt and it wasn't fun anymore. So we stopped doing them.
Yeah. Well, roasts can do that. The big fear of a roast is always you find out something about yourself that you didn't know.
Yeah. Marcus went and fixed his teeth after his roast because he didn't know he had bad teeth. And then everyone kept writing Marcus's bad teeth jokes. And then he made a dentist appointment the next day.
Yeah, that's rough. See, I feel for those people, and I've been roasted, and it's herpes this, and drunk this, but yeah, you don't want to be like this. I have bad breath. What? That's never great. So, anyways, it's great to see. Now, I don't see you as we talk anxiety a lot on this and therapy. What you seem like a guy, again, you don't give a fuck. I don't know how that happens. I'd love for you to teach me that. Are you a therapy guy? Are you an anxiety guy? Are you anything? You're not a great guest, I don't think.
Well, I'd never been to therapy. I had to do some court mandated therapy for a little while. I had group sessions. I got arrested for selling weed back in Florida before I knew any of you people. And I had to do some group therapy once a week, and then solo therapy twice a month for a year, and that was a lot. And because it was just I realized when I was there, because I was there for selling weed, and everyone else there was there for crack, and doing horrible shit. And I just remember being like, well, at least I know I'm okay.
Right.
And there was this one guy who used to run the therapy session, and I can't remember his name. He's a big old guy, and he was like, everyone there is like a recovering addict and everyone's, finding their way through life and getting back together. And I remember this one guy, he was a prick to everybody, but he was nice to me. And it was just he was really rude to everybody. And we show up one day and he's not there. And I was like, hey, where's Bill? And they're like, oh, he died. Like, apparently the day before, he died in front of everybody at the halfway house.
Jesus.
And had a brain aneurysm or some shit, just dropped dead in front of everyone. And they had to they carry him out of there, and they had to tell us all in the middle of the therapy session. And then and then I was like, oh my God. And then of course we're in a group therapy, and they tell us, and we're like, oh, wow, this is insane. And then he's like, Ed? I was like, I don't think he liked me. I don't know. They're like, no, he liked you. And so it was just it was a bizarre thing.
So did they want you to talk and say a few words, or to share your sadness or something?
Yeah, well, they wanted me to give my thoughts, I guess, on what happened or share my sadness. But I mean, the truth was, the guy was not, I didn't really like him that much. So it was hard. So it was hard to just be compassionate, especially with a room full of people who hated him. And but it was still kind of you knew he was there because he wanted to help us,
right?
We might not have liked him, and he had a shitty attitude, but he was there because he did want to make the world a better place. And so it was kind of bittersweet when you really thought about it. And so I said some nice words. I can't remember what they were. And I remember the guy thanking me afterwards, and just spit anything out of your mouth that you could think of.
Sure.
And of course, like back then, like I'm doing Murder Fist in Tallahassee, so it's like, I'm probably better with words than most of the drug addicts in the room.
Oh, right.
And and it was a very interesting situation, but that's like basically my whole therapy world. I remember I did solo therapy with the other guy at the office at the halfway house, and he, after like 4 sessions, he was like, "You don't have to do this anymore if you don't want to." And I was like, "Thank you very much. I will take you up on that."
Oh, that's nice. So what did you talk about when you're in there? Because that's fascinating to me. First of all, I feel for a therapist who gets the gig of forced therapy, of doing therapy with people that aren't interested in doing therapy, because that seems like not an enjoyable gig for him or for you.
They're all like, it's all drug addicts, and everyone in there is a complete drug addict, and had been arrested on a nonviolent crime. The only way you can get into this program is if you didn't have any violence on your record. And so, everyone in there was they were calm, but there was also a bunch of scary drug dealers too that just never got arrested on a violent crime.
Right.
And so this is also Tallahassee, Florida. And so it's an interesting mixture of human beings. It's all, just like straight up hood gangsters, and then dirty rednecks, and it's like this, and just scary rednecks. You just swamp people.
Right.
And that this was, and I'm just a kid from Boca Raton who's trying to go to college, and we're all in the same therapy session together.
Now, when you grew up, were you like a run wild, crazy kid, or what was going on there? Were you kind of a rebellious, or when did you get into weed and all that shit?
It was interesting. I went through all the cycles, to be honest with you. I started out in Catholic school, which I fucking hated. And I went there from like kindergarten to 6th grade, and I had no friends. I didn't know anybody. And I was like friends with like 3 kids, and I hated it. I couldn't stand it. We were poorer than everyone else, and I was bigger than everyone else. And so they all kind of like made fun of me. I had cooties, I was, it was a mess. And so eventually I told my parents I want to go to public school. And I remember threatening to fail on purpose if they wouldn't let me go to public school.
Hell yeah.
And then my mom was furious. And then it was easy to convince my dad. I was just like, I want to go to free school. So you can send me to free school, and you don't have to pay however much you're paying for St. Joan of Arc anymore. Just send me to free school. I want to wear my own clothes. I want to go where like people are normal and shit. And so I ended up going to free school. And then for the first like year, I like came out of my shell in different ways. At first, like I realized that, if I got into a fight, it didn't really matter that much. If I got into like a little scuffle, it was okay. And then, and then I started to like and after that, after I went through that dirty phase, by the time I got to high school, I started becoming friends with everybody. And then I like led the pep rallies, and I was friends with the jocks and the nerds and the theater kids, and I was doing theater, and I was doing the morning announcements, and and it was very, high school was very good for me, which is rare for people, I think.
Yeah, that sounds similar to me as far as the high school thing. First of all, good for you for having the ability to assert yourself and saying, I'm not going to school here anymore. Yeah. I don't want to go to school, to stand up to your parents, and also to come up with a plan of action if they didn't go for what you wanted. I love.
Yeah.
Like, I'll sabotage this whole fucking family. If you don't send me to school.
I was like, I don't care. I'll be in school forever. I will fail on purpose.
Right.
That was also my plan for military school if they wanted to send me there. And I was like, I will not do good on purpose, and I will do it for as long as I have to until you take me out of it.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I feel similarly with high school. Once I got to high school, or more specifically, I guess a little bit freshman year, but once I got into sophomore, junior year of high school, I started to realize, and this is the only time I really had this in my life, I think, was like, I didn't give a fuck. I saw everything so clearly. I was like, this is all a joke, but also wonderful. And I liked having an audience every day and seeing everybody every day. And I was also like the big sports paint my face at the football games. I was friends with the athletes. and I was run up and down the sidelines and go fucking nuts. And I threw a tailgate party before school one time where me and some friends got to high school at like 7 a.m. So we were tailgating when everyone got in there, and the announcements, all that stuff. I didn't do theater because I'm not a complete loser, but I did all the other stuff. And, but I really felt like, oh man, this is it. I get it. I had an audience and I liked everybody and I got along with everybody. It was pretty fantastic. So I was similar there.
It's crazy because I never even thought of doing comedy till it accidentally happened to me. And I didn't even realize, looking back now, like I'm hosting these pep rallies. There's 2,000 people and it's me with a microphone. I have no concept that that's even like me doing time or like, like hosting a show or anything. It's just me jerking off in front of my friends. And it just happened to be, these huge crowds. And when I look back on it, I'm like, I never gonna play for those size crowds for
right. Right.
And it's a totally bizarre thing to me that I was just like, I just flopped and just did it. And I don't know where it came from or like where that energy like came out of me, but it worked. And
so,
then, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask. So there wasn't then too much residual from going to Catholic school and being kind of picked on and feeling like an outcast. That didn't fuck you up, or you didn't carry that, or maybe it fucked you up, but not too bad or something.
Basically, like the last year I was in Catholic school, I got a couple of new friends in my neighborhood where I lived, and they basically showed me that I didn't have to take shit from everybody anymore. Like it's like, you're big. You can not take shit. You can defend yourself. And then we got into we spent like a summer getting into a million fights. And I kind of like at the end of it, I was just like, oh, fuck these kids at Catholic school. Fuck these teachers. I don't believe in God. Like I knew like at a very young age, I didn't believe in God. I remember like
same
crying about it to my mom. Like, it's just like, it doesn't make sense. Anyone could have written it, like,
right.
So like, I used to have to go to like confession once a week in a Catholic school. And I got to the point where it's just like, I'm lying to the priest trying to like create sins that I didn't commit, just so I had something to confess, it was just like, I was like, what am I even doing here? I hate all of this. And I ended up like, I got into a couple fights at Catholic school and it didn't fly over there. And by the end of the year, I was just like, can you please just take me out of this fucking hellhole that I obviously hate? And they did. And then I started playing football. And I started like developing community a little bit. And I realized, oh, okay, people actually like me. And, it's like, I have friends now. And it's like, oh, okay. So now I can get past of that classism shit that I was dealing with at this hoity toity Boca Raton Catholic school. And I can just hang out with the normal kids. And it was great for me. I like was for the first time ever, I'm talking to girls. I'm taking my shirt off because I'm fat from birth, like, and just like,
right.
And it was great, man. I can't recommend public school more for anyone who's having problems inside of private school. They just flip the script on it completely. Because like, honestly, what are you paying for? If you're losing your mind and you can't make it and you're not getting along with everyone, what's the fucking point?
Right. Yeah, I was a public school guy, and what's fun, I didn't even know anybody that went to private school or Catholic school, which is funny because I'm from Massachusetts and it's all Catholics up there, but we were all public school, and I loved it. I remember, I've told this story before somewhere, but I remember I just loved high school, and my friends, we loved it. It was such a great time, and my friend had a band, and we were at his band show, and there was other kid that was in a band from our high school, and he was like, who goes to Whitman Hanson High School? And we all did. So we were like, yeah. And he's like, who thinks it fucking sucks? And then I remember it got like a very tepid response. We were all like, I don't know, it's pretty good. I don't know. I don't mind it. Like, we're kind of like, that's cool. Like, he like wanted to be like that, like, fuck this school. And we were kind of like, I don't know. There's a courtyard. It's pretty deep.
I got to say, kind of on topic, if I can blow a little smoke up your ass.
Please.
I watch that stupid college game day commercial like 5 times a year that you're in.
Oh,
It is
thanks.
so funny. You were like, you just completely destroyed that character.
Oh, thank you.
And you nailed it, man. I know it's only like 10 seconds long, but it's like it's the funniest thing in the world to me. I legitimately would love it if it wasn't you. And you kill me. I put it on for happiness.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I should pull that off of YouTube. If people want to see it, you can go to YouTube. I think it's ESPN Bevo or something like that. But
yeah, you steal the Longhorn mascot. And you're trying to talk the school cops into letting you go.
Yeah, that's right. Man, I forgot about that. I got the first commercial I ever went out for was a Captain Morgan commercial, and I got it. And then the fourth commercial I ever went out for was that commercial, and I got that one. And then I never got anything again.
Man, I booked 3 nationals and none of them went to air. You believe that shit? I booked 3 different nationals, and like Bank of America, Nike, and Carnival Cruise Lines filmed all of them, and not one of them went to fucking air.
That sucks.
It's so aggravating. And so one of the Nike commercial went to air. They just cut me out of it.
Oh, that's
so obviously it's like, how am I in the Nike commercial anyway? But you know.
So how does it come to you graduate high school, and did you go to college at all? How did you start getting into comedy? How'd that go?
I followed a bunch of my friends were going to Tallahassee. They're all started going to Florida State. So I'm like, I'll go move to Tallahassee. And so I went up and I started going to TCC, and my parents weren't well off. We were the family that went poor trying to live with the rich people.
Right.
You know, and so right before I went to college, my dad, I guess had spent a lot of money and wasted a lot of his money and needed my college fund, like literally months before I went to college. And so I lost my college fund and just went up to college, and I started working and going to college, and I found myself like skipping class to, go to work so I could pay for my books. I was like, what am I even fucking doing here? So I just started hanging out, and I only took one class for 3 years in community college, and that was journalism. And I wrote for the school paper, and I didn't do anything else other than writing for the school paper and working at Hooters and selling weed. And then so I was just like, I'm out. I'm done. I'm quitting school. This is not for me. Obviously, I shouldn't be doing it. And then now I'm just living in Tallahassee, enjoying my life. And then I start hanging out with these theater kids over at Florida State, because Florida State has like a really good theater program. I don't know if many people know that, but it's like one of the best in the nation. Wow. And so I start hanging out with all these theater kids, because I sell them weed. And they're like, oh, we're putting on this show this weekend. You should come check it out. And I was in a group called Girls Aren't Funny. And I went and saw their show. It was in Holden McNeely's parking lot. Wow. And it was fucking hilarious. And I was screaming, laughing the whole time. And I was having such a good time. And I just remember at the end of the show, I was just like, so I do this with you now, right? It's just like, so we're like, I'm in the group and you're the group and we're together and I got weed, so you can't tell me no. And then then we had a meeting and we changed the name to Murder Fist. And then we just did it in Tallahassee for years until we moved to New York together. And we all decided we didn't want to disperse and stop doing it.
Wow. Is Murder Fist still going now?
I mean, in a way, we haven't performed in like years, but none of us will actually say that it's over.
Right.
And I know that in 2 years is the 20th anniversary. So I know that me and Henry and Jackie and Holden are talking about putting together a big show for that. But for the most part, I mean, we haven't performed together in years. But me and Henry, and we're all over the podcast network. It's like evolved in a way.
Right.
And some of the guys still do sketch with Holden on Twitch. And, we all performed together on the last podcast network. And me and Henry started a stand-up show out in LA called Classy Night Out. And so we still get to be on stage together a lot. And it's nice. It will come back eventually. But it's not right now. It is not moving forward.
Yeah, this isn't a great time for sketch comedy.
No.
This isn't let's all get together and spit blood on each other kind of stuff.
Murderfist was definitely not COVID friendly.
No. I don't think it was anything friendly other than comedy. It was a wild show. And now, people that don't know, can people find all this stuff on YouTube and everything?
There's a lot of Murderfist videos on YouTube you can check out. There's some live stuff that's really old, and then there's some other film stuff on there that we did when we tried to put a pilot presentation together that just ended up not happening because we were all fucking drunks and so couldn't get the job done. And so, but we did get the job done. It was just 2 years too late.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's bring this into. I'm fascinated by it because even if you don't have anxiety or depression, I want to know what's your experience with those or dealing with it, or have you had dabs of anxiety or depression, and if not, how did you? What is this disposition? Is it your parents? Is it what happened? Is it the weed? How did you get to be such a jovial guy?
It is not my parents. My dad just wanted to be alone all the time. He did not want to spend time with anyone, including me and my mother. He was always away on business. He had lots of other girlfriends and stuff like that. And my mom was a worrywart. And I used to fight like hell with both of them. As much as I do love them, we used to despite their flaws, we used to fight like hell. And I just remember thinking at a young age, it's like, I don't want to be like that, and I don't want to be like that.
Right.
And so whenever I felt like those urges coming on, I would just get myself out of the situation, or just refuse the emotion, kind of. I get anxiety. Of course, we get anxiety. We are constantly put in insane situations.
Right.
It being in the entertainment industry. It's all of a sudden, we're at parties, we're all friends and we all like each other, but we're all going after the same work and the same jobs. And every situation is a work situation. And so no matter where you are at any time, because you never know who you're going to meet. And it gets very intense and very anxiety inducing. And I don't do well at Comedy Central parties and stuff like that. I'm always my brain's going 10 different ways. I probably have too much of the free alcohol, and it's very anxiety inducing. And whenever I feel the anxiety taking over and I don't want to talk to anyone, I just remove myself from the situation and I just leave early. I'll just head out, and just deal with it later. And, and I think that really helps me, is because I'm not trying to force a conversation when I know I'm mentally incapable of having it.
Right. Yeah, that's good stuff. And I do a very similar thing. But then what happens for me, because I'm a big leave guy, I tell this story all the time. When I was first thinking about getting sober, or wanting to get sober, I was talking to Gary Gulman, the great comedian, past guest, who I might have told the story when he was on the show, but he's not sober, but he just never was a drinker. But he was telling me, I was talking to him and I was like, but what do I do? Because I was making my case for why I should keep blacking out every night. And I was like, but what do I do if I'm at a party and I just hate everybody? What do I do then? And then he was like, you go home. And it was like a moment of clarity. I was like, oh, it never occurred to me. I was like, oh, I see. I leave. But it was a thing. I do have the anxiety. And do you have this at all? I have the anxiety of this is why I'm not doing better. This is why I'm not further, because I don't schmooze. I don't do the thing. But I also have this pride in avoiding that. I'm I'm not one of these guys that's trying to climb. I don't want to be a climber. But then I also am fuck, I would like to make more money.
Well, yes, we all want to make more money. And I try not to put more on my plate than I know I can handle. And I do feel like I should push myself harder than I do. But at the same time, I find that my mental stability is way more important than any amount of money. And so I try not to make myself crazy about. I used to live with Dan St. Germain, and I would watch him just work all night and just type and type and type and type and type all night long. And just not once did a smile come across his face. And I was like, there's no way this is funny, but now he's a very successful television writer. and he's like, he's got so much money in the bank, and he's got a beautiful wife, and he's like, his life is actually together, and which is unbelievable to me. And so I look at that, and I was like, okay, so maybe if I would have put myself through that hell that he did, I would be much further along. But then in my mind, I'm like, well, that's not fun. And that's also not why I got into this game. I got into this game to enjoy my life and have a better time. And so I almost take like a money tax
Yeah.
to, have a better disposition.
Yeah, that's great. I feel very similarly with a couple close friends who are just constantly writing, constantly working, and I just can't do it. I have to take days off, weeks off, nights off, and moments off. But I always think about I use the analogy. I'm a big movie guy, obviously, but there's a scene in Casino where
Just watched it.
where Pesci goes, he's like, a million times I wanted to say, we're supposed to be robbing this place, you Jew motherfucker, whatever he says. But that's how I feel with comedy. I'm like, we're supposed to be robbing that. Like, we're supposed to be getting away with something. The whole idea of comedy is we're beating the system. We're not, there's no alarm clock. We're not waking up. So I talk to these guys that are like, I get up at 7 a.m. and I write for 2 hours. And I'm like, we're supposed to be robbing the place. Like, what are you doing? Have some fun. Fucking throw it all on 48 or whatever.
Yeah, no. And half of my comedy, I believe, just comes from me having a good time. And I feel like if you're not having a good time on stage, it's very rare that the audience will, And so I always try to like have a good disposition. I try to like keep it positive. I'm very focused on finding the positive in any negative situation. And I think it's really helped me out. And I actually got this advice from my cousin Jeff. Jeff Ross is my cousin, if you don't know. I got this from him very early on, and it's stuck with me. And it's enjoy the process, whatever it is. If you're being a dick and you're not enjoying the process, I guess who's not getting hired for season 2?
Right.
Like it's so be good. Enjoy what you're doing and have fun doing it, or it's just you're not coming back. No one's going to want to be around you. And that's what we're doing. We're party starters,
right?
Like that's like we're keeping it going. We're trying to get people laid. We're like it's what it is. It's what comedy is. It's a relief. We're and if I'm up there stressed out and freaking out all the time, no one's going to be relieved when they're seeing the show, and so it's not good for business. And so I keep it positive as much as possible.
Right. Yeah, that's helpful. And it helps me to remind myself, because I try to do that, and I've tried to do that my whole life. And that's what I was so successful at in high school. That's when I was the most successful at it, because I was like, what are we doing? We're in high school. What the fuck? Granted, I had like the worst grades and really failed off the track team at one point, but I had a great time, and I look back and the memories are great. But no, that's really nice to hear and refreshing. And I think that's something that people can take to all their jobs, whatever job that you're doing, is enjoy it and try to be pleasant to be around. I'm always fascinated by these guys that we all know, that are like, yeah, I'm a dick. That's my thing. Where you're like, what? You're going with that? That's your thing? It's like, yeah, I'm like an asshole. But people will say, they're like, that guy's an asshole, but he embraces it. Like, that's like, he embraces it. That's just, I'm like, why is that fun? Why is that acceptable?
Yeah. I mean, well, because, assholes need to feel like they're a part of a group too. So his audience is a bunch of fucking pricks. And you realize that whenever you do their show, you're like, oh, okay, that's the people that are here. And someone will be rude to me at the bar, and I'll go home mad. And,
right. Yeah, that's the important thing to remember, is you kind of get back what you put out. And that's why I love this show, because this show, the fans are like so crazy nice. Like, the reviews on iTunes of this show are like, make me cry. It's like so touching and thoughtful. So
I actually do. I didn't know this show existed. I feel so awful. But I do. My show is very similar. The Brighter Side. I don't think we've ever had you on, but I do a positivity podcast with Amber Nelson on Last Podcast Network for years now. And the fans just love it, because everyone's so fucking negative and complaining about shit all the time. It's just like, can't we just find some fucking good in the world for 2 seconds? And so it's good. It helps. And
Um,
you got to realize that there's always going to be something good to come out of every horrible situation.
right. I'm gonna listen to that podcast because I love Amber, and I have to have Amber on this podcast too. She's one of my favorite. I mean, first of all, one of the funniest people I've ever seen or met.
Oh my God, it's such a treat working with her.
Yeah, she's great. And oh shit, I forget what I was gonna say. Right. Oh, that's what I was just talking to my buddy about this right before this, and I was talking to my therapist about it. This time right now is so hard because you talk about people being bummed. Normally in the old days, you'd get down and you'd call a couple people and they'd be like, come on, my help, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Now it
you go
feels
to the
like,
movies,
yeah,
you go do something fun.
yeah. Everyone I talk to now, it's like, the election and COVID and this. And so it feels like across the board, everybody unanimously is just bummed out and like, I don't know where we're headed with the winter and the surge and the fucking fires and the race and the thing. It's a difficult time having everyone so down. So this is refreshing.
It's an impossible time for mental health right now. And as positive as I like to stay, at least twice a week, I'm like incapacitated with fucking, just grief and just general malaise. Just like I don't even care about shit. I just like sit there and watch shit that I don't even like compute into my brain. It's just like on the screen so I can have something to look at. And this is a really tough time. I mean, divorce is up, suicide's up, shit's real. This is not, it's interesting because COVID obviously is very real and it would kill me. My parents are diabetics, I have sleep apnea. So like if I got it, it would kill me. But like I think I would fucking kill an animal to go to a movie right now and just like
Right, right,
just be in the theater, just go to a restaurant and like or go to a comedy show and just hang with my friends.
right.
Everything's so complicated and it's just and it's it's like I just like I'm a hugger, and it's just like it's like so I get a lot of my life force from that. And it's just like, it's so upsetting what we're all going through. And what I try to do is I don't cheat myself out of the emotion, out of the negative emotion. I embrace it. And if I'm all fucked up and I'm sad and I'm not, and I can tell that I'm not going to get out of it anytime soon, I'll put on some sad music. And, like,
Right,
I'll
right.
just like, I'll look at some old photo albums and like, I'll get into it. And I feel like a lot of people, when they get depressed or they're experiencing grief, they try to not have the emotion. And I think that that's the wrong thing to do. I think that you have to have it. And if you hide it, then it's just going to fuck you in the long run.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I was listening to a podcast earlier. I'm so obsessed with all like Buddhism and meditation and all this stuff. And that's exactly right. That's what they all talk about is like saying yes to the feeling instead of resistance is where all the suffering comes from and being like, no. And what we end up doing is going into habits and usually bad habits of eating too much or looking at social media or getting in a fight with someone on Twitter or talking to our spouse about some cunt at the grocery store or whatever. And none of that really, and all of that really under the surface, you're just like, I'm sad because my dad hasn't called and I want to go to the movies or whatever it is. And
Oh my God.
I got a buddy who always says, he's like, sometimes the difference between a good day and a bad day is a nap and a sandwich. And I'm like, I have to remember that of like, let me just rest for a few minutes and make a peanut butter and jelly and maybe I'll feel a little better. But I do think
Honestly.
yeah, like going into it and accepting it and kind of being in those feelings and emotions is helpful and more productive actually.
Yeah, and never make a big decision on an empty stomach.
I like that.
Yeah, that's something my dad taught me, and obviously, I don't make any big decisions or any decision. But I eat to decide what I'm going to eat.
But it also does help me though to hear you say that you get down or you stare at the TV and it doesn't even get through because I was just going through that. But I have this thing sometimes, compare and despair, as we say, where I'll like think I'm like, oh, Ed's just having a great time. He's just sitting in a closet doing a podcast. He's got a sock on his mic. Nothing's bothering him. So it feels good to hear that, like, okay, even Ed Larson gets fucking bummed out and feels some despair.
Yeah, man. I mean, of course. I mean, we all have shit that happens to you. And anytime you sit down and you think longer than 3 minutes, you're going to come across something sad. And,
Right.
and like also, like, shit is so fucked up right now. if anyone who's just like happy all the time, you keep an eye out on them. Because that ain't right. It's like it is awful, and you are allowed to be sad. And don't think for a second you're not allowed to be sad. And some people are sadder longer than other people, and other people have like legitimate mental problems and need medication, and they have to go to the doctor, and that needs to happen. I'm very fortunate that at this point in my life I don't have to, but I've been dealing with a lot lately, just the isolation and all that shit. Whereas, like, I really want to start therapy, but I truthfully have no idea how to even begin the process.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to start therapy these days too, because every therapist is booked and everyone wants to be in therapy. Like my therapist is like, I'm overwhelmed. He's like, I can't take on any more people, because I've asked him about a couple people, and he's just like, I'm overly booked. And he's like, every therapist I know is overbooked right now.
Yeah.
So I think there's Talkspace. I know I think we do an advertisement on my other podcast, Talkspace. You can find licensed.
Okay.
I don't want to get too into it because
no. Just shoot me with the stories. 2020 is the
yeah. I'll get you a code. Yeah, I'll email it to you. But there are ways. But I do want to, because this conversation is flying by, I want to talk about your film. You made a film, which probably plays into a lot of what we're talking about, I imagine. Tell me about the movie, and just tell me about it.
So I made a documentary with Travis Irvine.
I love Travis.
About how he's the director. He was honestly, the movie wouldn't have got done if it wasn't for Travis. And it's called How America Killed My Mother, and it's about the death of my mother and everything that we went through because I'm an only child. My parents are divorced at 20. So it was just me and my mom. And when I decided to move to New York with all of Murder Fist, my family's from New Jersey. So I basically told my mom, hey, you're moving to Jersey. You're going to go live by your sister. You're going to be an hour and a half away. And so we came up, and we're in it together. I live in New York. She lives in Jersey, but we're in it together. We help each other out with bills and everything. But, she's a brittle diabetic as well. On top of all of this, she was a diabetic since the day I was born. And things just like it starts really taking a toll on her body, on her wallet. She's working 3 jobs, and she shouldn't be health wise. Like she just like shouldn't be working that much, but she was in that horrible little limbo where, you're too sick to you're too sick to work, but you're not unhealthy enough not to work, according to the government. And so she had to work, and she had night jobs, and she was working 70, 80-hour day work weeks, 10, 20 an hour, nothing, making no money. It's just grinding and grinding and grinding, working Christmas, Thanksgiving, all that shit. And she had this, and through all that and through all of her bills and all of her trouble, in order to like make ends meet, because I don't know if you know this, Joe, you know how much it costs to be a diabetic for a year on average in America? $16,000 a year. That my mom's making $32,000 a year. The money doesn't add up. There's not enough to live. And plus my mom likes to have fun. She likes to give gifts, she likes to, be a human being. And, so we, over time, she developed a gambling problem. And because one time before we moved to New York, she was going to the Hard Rock Casino in South Florida, and she got a royal flush, and she had a little extra chip down that says, if you get a royal flush, you win $15,000. And she won $15,000, and it was amazing. And we got to move to New York on that money. I got to live in New York for a month and a half with no job and just kind of like adjust to the city. And, it was a godsend. We probably wouldn't have been able to do it without it. And then the problem is that became the answer for her. So whenever things started getting a little tight, she'd run and spend a bunch of money at the casino, and it never worked out again, And so it just ended up being like money every fucking time. And the other thing with being a diabetic is when your sugar drops below a certain point, which my mom was a type of diabetic where her sugar would drop more than it would go high. And whenever it drops below a certain amount, you get brain damage, like a little bit of brain damage. It's just like a little bit here, a little bit there. And then after 30 something years, it really fucking adds up. And so
Right.
the last year of her life, she didn't know much of what was going on. Something like I remember having a conversation with her and she didn't know where Europe was at one point, so it's just like, okay. And this is a woman driving with 3 jobs,
Right.
so it's just
Right.
like, okay, let's start to rein this in here. And, I just starting to, comedy's just starting to pop for me. I'm doing the burn. I got, roast battle, I'm getting some good money coming in. And then she just like every time seemed like every time I got a paycheck, she went and lost thousands of dollars at the casino and I had to cover for her. And so we never got out of the hole and we were never able to get anything. And then her job, they switch insurances on her and she's got this glucose monitor and her new insurance, which was good for everyone else that worked there except for my mom, because my mom was the only diabetic. She's got a glucose monitor, and basically the insurance company, Medicare, said that if we want to keep the glucose monitor, we got to give them $800. This is a machine she's had for years. And
Right.
basically, if her sugar drops, it beeps, and she knows she's got to eat some sugar or a glucose tablet, and or drink some orange juice, and it'll come right back up, and she'll be normal. And so they wanted $800, and it was a point where it's like $800 might as well have been like $5,000 to us at the
Right.
moment, at that time. And so we had to give the machine back. And then that's how she died. Her sugar dropped when she was sleeping and nothing woke her up.
Jesus.
So it was just like, and I look at that and I look at like the banks with the overdraft fees and then bouncing checks at the casinos and the way the casinos would manipulate the way that that they deposited the checks so they can get the most fees out of it, because they don't want you to write a good check.
Right.
That doesn't make them any money. They want you to write a bounce check because that way they can collect all the fees every time they try and deposit it. And my mom used to go to Trump Taj Mahal all the time because she was in Atlantic City, and you grow up and that was where everyone went growing up and stuff like that. And so she used to always go there out of habit. And I remember like after she passed away, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go like confront them and like try and settle these debts, and like
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm gonna pay my mom's bills and stuff like that. And so I go there and they won't take your money. You're not allowed to pay your debts at the casino. You have to literally mail checks to Las Vegas to pay your Atlantic City gambling debts. And like the only way they'll take your money down there is if you put it on the table and bet on something. Like it's the only, and it's
Interesting.
like, and it's so manipulating. And my mom, I find out the last week of her life, she's not in her right state of mind. Obviously, it's the last week of her life. And she had passed out in the casino and was brought to the hospital. They wouldn't give me the fucking incident report. They wouldn't, like, it was just like the whole thing was so gross and manipulating. And then the banks, like, with like not giving back overdraft fees. And then I look it up and I find out that in 2017, banks made $34 billion in overdraft fees. American banks made $34 billion in overdraft fees. That's $34
Wow.
billion from the poorest people in this fucking country. And, it's just not right. It's just a wrong way to do business. And it should be illegal. It's all predatory. And then I look at my mom's situation and I was like, this can't be the only person this is happening to.
Right.
It has to be happening thousands of times a day all across this fucking country. And, someone's got to say something. So it's like, when do we stop? Like forget politics. Like, humanity has to come in at some point.
You would hope, yeah.
It's just like it would have to. And like and it just never did for my mom. And she, like, in the last 5 years of her life, were fucking hell. And she didn't deserve it. She was a good woman, a nice person. She always treated me well. She loved bringing people gifts. She loved, like, anytime kids couldn't make it home for Christmas that were stuck in New York, she always took them in, like the Murder Fist guys, Marcus Parks. They would all come stay with me for Christmas. Kissel, all that shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like, she's a good woman that didn't deserve what happened to her. And I was fucking furious. And so I took her life insurance money, and I was like, you know what? Let's make this movie. And I want to tell this story. And so I wasted the life insurance money on making this movie. And that's it. And it's out now. And I took quarantine to edit it with Travis. And that really fucked with me mentally
Yeah.
because like whenever I'm popping out of quarantine, I'm like talking to all my friends, going through crazy shit, going through breakups, going through everything. And then I'm talking people off the ledge left and right. And then I'm like, okay, all right, I'm glad everything's okay. And then I go back and start editing this movie about my dead mother, and it's just like, like my fucking mind was gone. I'm so happy this thing is done. I just really wanted to be out in the world, and we're pushing it hard. I just wanted people to see it before this fucking election.
Yeah, fuck yeah. So where do they see it? Where can they find it?
Well, you can go to howamericakilledmymother.com, or it's available on Vimeo for rental or purchase. You can rent it for $3.99, or you could buy it for $6.99. And it'll be up until after the election, and then we're going to take it down. And we'll see if we can't and put it somewhere else after that. But I had to get it out before. I was like, honestly, if I change 4 votes, it's worth it to me, because it's just like there has to be some sort of accountability for people ripping off the poor. And they're just right now, if you rip off a poor person, you're considered successful. And that shit grosses me out to an extent that like I can't I'm already like tearing up. I get so fucking mad when people take advantage of weak people.
Yeah, of course.
And it just it was like watching it happen to my mom is like worse than watching it happen to a stranger. Now whenever I see it happen to a stranger, I just think about my mom and then I get enraged.
Yeah, sure. No, they're bullies. Now, do you have a Florida vote still by any chance?
No,
damn it.
No, I'm in California. That was the other thing when my mom passed away. I lost my second vote because she would just vote for whoever I told her.
Sure. Yeah.
So she was in Jersey, and so I lost my New Jersey vote.
Right.
Now, I'm in California, so not much. I'm gonna vote, but I don't know how much it's gonna change anything. But I have a lot of friends down in Florida. I have a lot of Republican friends down in Florida, and they all love my mother. And so I'm making sure I'm like literally hitting like my high school friends up that I haven't talked to in years with direct messages and promo codes just to make sure they fucking watch the movie.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, no, because I'm just, furious. Oh my God. Did you see the woman running for the representative of Palm Beach County? Laura Loomer. This is like where I grew up. The woman running is she's a QAnon person. And,
I did hear that.
She's trying to deport Muslims. And it's like she's gonna become a representative. No one, because I talked to my friends down there, and they're like, I'm like, do you know who she is, Laura Loomer? No one knows who the fuck she is. They never heard of her. And so it's just like, this is a nightmare. This is like, so things can start getting real crazy real fast if we don't all start just chipping in and doing a little extra.
Yeah.
It's obviously, it shows us that like you can't just let it ride.
Yeah. No, totally. Well, yeah, get on those Florida friends. Those Florida votes are huge. It's I think it's like even-ish there now according to polls, but who knows what goes on with the
I got a lot of people in Ohio and New Jersey too. So I'm fighting. I'm going for it.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I always think comedians, we should all like get a house in Ohio or Florida and then just all put our names on it. And,
that's a phenomenal idea.
I love it. There's like, it's 20 of us. We all live there and we got to, start getting some votes.
A timeshare. If we got 20 people together and we got a timeshare in Ohio or North Carolina, it'd be a nice place for us all to go vacation. We wouldn't want to fuck it up because we all love each other. And so we wouldn't want the other person to have to clean up our mess. I mean, this is actually a very solid idea, Joe.
It's not bad. Yeah, we got to start cheating. They cheat. We got to cheat too. It's get fucking weird.
That's the truth. It's like, that's what I'm so scared about Biden. I don't think he's willing to play dirty. And it's like, this is not a clean fight. This is not-
I know he did all weekend. I mean, this is, by the way, this is where the fans of this podcast go from being nice to being like, hey, what the fuck was that part at the end? But no, he came out and he's like, I'm not going to do any negative ads. I'm not going to say anything negative while Trump is in the hospital. And I'm like, big mistake.
Kick him when he's down. Are you crazy?
Go unplug his shit. Yeah. Fucking
the villain's about to get up. Like Michael Myers is not dead. He's not.
Yeah. Well, they say Sarah's family is from Houston. She's from Houston, and her mother still lives there. Her family lives there. And in Humboldt County, which is where Houston is, there's one drop-off location for 5 million people.
It's unbelievable. Houston, that whole was it the East River Valley or something like that down there is
the gerrymandering.
Yeah, just everything down there is insane. You know, like down by the border in Brownsville, in between Brownsville and Houston are checkpoints. So you can't drive north. There's only one highway. And so you can't, if you're an illegal immigrant and you want to drive north, you can't, because they check every car and make sure that you're an American citizen if you look brown. And I talked to people down there because we did a special from Brownsville when we roasted immigrants. And yeah, and I remember meeting this guy who he was married, but like for some reason his citizenship hadn't come through yet. And his wife was sick with cancer and in the hospital in Houston, and he couldn't go visit her because he would get deported if he did. And like, this is like, it's like, we can't keep calling ourselves the best country on earth when that type of shit happens. When the shit that happens to my mom happened, like, it's very hard for me to sit here and say America's the best country. I don't want to live anywhere else. I love my country with every ounce of my heart, and I refuse to move. But like, it's like, we are not the best right now. And
right.
There needs to be a major step forward, or this whole thing's going to fucking unravel.
Yeah, it's a rebuilding year. We're rebuilding. We're hoping for a high draft pick. We're tanking so we can get the number one pick. And by the way, Biden is not the number one pick, but we'll take him. We'll take what we have available. This guy, you're like, he's whatever. That's a whole other topic.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, we fucked up with when Obama was in office. Like, all of us liberals, we were like, oh, okay, it's done. You know, everything's fine, and we ignored everything, and didn't like hold him accountable. And everything was fucked up. There was so much police violence back then. It hasn't changed. He's doing drone strikes all over the world. You know, this like healthcare got barely better. You know, and so it's just like, we need to make sure, not only do we have to make sure Biden gets elected, we have to make his life miserable once it is.
Yeah, I don't know how long that life's going to last once he's in there, but we'll see. I give him a good 3 weeks.
I mean, anything. Just like literally anything. I'll take it. I just, honestly, it's just so hard for me. Like, I can't fake it. I try to like look at both sides, and I really, like, I have lots of Trump people in my family, and we have constructive conversations. I have constructive conversation with plenty of police. I've done work with the Boston Police Department, who's surprisingly well put together. And it's just so I understand the other side, but I have a personal vendetta against this fucking guy because of all the money that he cheated my mom out of. You know, so I look at this guy that I had to like pay my hard-earned cash to because my mom was getting duped at his fucking casino for all these years, and now he's fucking president. It's like, what? Him? The guy I hate? Like, it's like before any of this? Before, like, and it's just so infuriating, Joe. It makes me so crazy. And then I look back also, the other side of it is my first comedy gig ever was his fucking roast.
Wow.
My first paid gig of any sort. I got Jeff threw me like a couple $100 to write some jokes. And it's just like, God fucking damn it. Like, he's like attached to everything in my goddamn life. And it's, and I just want him gone. I have a personal vendetta.
He's your Biff. He's your Biff to your George McFly. Or Marty.
Is, man.
Well, maybe, maybe someday you'll knock him out, and I don't know. I was trying to do a Back to the Future analogy that didn't really make sense. But, well, dude, this was so fun. Thanks for doing it. It's great to see you. Great to catch up.
It's great to see you too, Joe. You're such a shining light, and it always bums me out whenever I see you like be self-deprecating, because you're so funny and you're so
thanks.
Kind, and you're like a comedy superhero to me. And I don't know. I've never understood why you don't build yourself up more, but it's also part of your thing. So
thanks. My therapist just said the same thing to me. He's like, my therapist just yelled at me for not having more self-empathy or sympathy or whatever. So I'll work on it.
You're a good man. Say hi to Sarah for me.
Will do. Thanks, Ed. I appreciate it. Thanks so much, man.
Mindful Metal Jacket is hosted by comedian Joe List. Produced by Joe List. Edited by Matt Kleinschmidt. Executive producers Robert Kelly and Matt Kleinschmidt for the Laugh Button Podcasts.